Good day, everyone. Today's video is a follow-up from what we did in class on Tuesday. Obviously, we had some snow, ice going on, so this is to help kind of just as a reminder for what we covered in class, but also to assist on the homework assignment. What you see in front of you is the Excel formulas that is available in the Blackboard folder. And with that, from those who are not in the class, at the bottom you can see different sheets with different formulas that you can use within Excel. Primarily today, we're going to cover how to do the dates and time. And a big part that we covered in class is when it comes to dates, if you want the text field. I don't have that in this. This is mostly from a purpose to have you get in the habit of Googling stuff. So oftentimes, even when I don't know what I exactly want to do, I still need to Google certain terms. So essentially, I Google a lot of shit to find out what I need to do and then apply it to the data set I had in front of me. So I think that's a big skill set of just to be able to search what you're trying to accomplish in any type of software or program. Excel is no different than more advanced ones if you get into those as well. So with that, the data set we're working with, similar to what we did last week, is still the Little Rock crime data. I downloaded a new data set this morning. Still CSV, so just getting the habit of files, save as. You want to save it as a workbook versus a CSV. Mostly when it comes to the mapping side, it's a lot easier to work with. If you notice anything different, this is a desktop I have at home, so it's a little slower than the one I have in my office, but still gets the job done for what we need to accomplish. So I'm saving that to a folder that I'm aware of. If you're using a data set that you've already been working with in class or another one, make sure you don't have any filters already selected. So if you're in your original data set, come up to sort and filter and just make sure you have clear or clear all filters that are applied to where you're working with a normal data set that's not going to create headaches down the line. So the big part that we're working with today is the time and date field. So in a lot of crime data that's available online for multiple cities, just not Little Rock, a lot of larger cities have crime data portals at large that have time and date fields with it. With that, we can extract information from this column that's going to be useful for simple temporal pattern analysis. So we'll get in today of how to do some of that and then set you on your way. First part I want to do is just add a bunch of columns to the right. Oops, of course I already messed that up. Control Z is just undo. Insert, I'm going to add quite a few to start off with. So the first one I'm going to do is year, month as text, day, and then day as text as well. So with that, if you want to extract the year and the Excel formula sheet has this in it, all we really want to do is grab and type in $year, open paren, select on our original date field here, so that's A2, our first date, close it off, hit enter. This is the oh shit moment of that's not the year, that's actually a date I have no idea what it has to do with. With that, Excel's trying to mimic or imitate the cell that's or the column that's next to it. So it thinks since you inserted a column next to the incident date, you probably want something like it. In our case, we do not. So if you see on any one of these cells in here that we just inserted next to this incident date column, all of them are custom. So you can see that up here in the top. We want all of these to be general because we want it to understand and use the formula that we're telling Excel to use. So I'm going to highlight B through F, come up here, and even though it says general, I'm just going to reiterate all the cells within these columns are going to be general from here on out. Now the year's showing appropriate, 2023. Double click to do that same formula all the way down, so we're good to go there. Similar, if we wanted the month from this field and we want it as the actual number, type in month, open paren, select that date, close it off, and we see it's 1. It's very similar to the day of the month. So again, type in day, open paren, select the date, close it off, and we know it's the 18th. So we have the month, the day, and the year all separated now. So we can do a lot of analyses with this. But intuitively, we like to see text, and a lot of times when we're making charts or figures, we want to see that a bit easier. So with that, Excel has the ability to pull and extract that for you as text. So if you went into Google and typed in Excel, month text from date, and it will bring up the text option. So if you type in text, it gives you a lot of ability to pull and extract data as text. So I type in text, equal sign, the value that you want to pull text from. That's going to be our original incident date, comma, format text. And this is where, if you notice what we did in class, depending on what you Googled, it might come back just as so 4Ms. The issue is you need quotes around this to signify that it is actual a text field. So by putting it in quotes, it's going to bring that back to you as such. So we do that, and now we have January. Very similar to the other ones, if we double click, it's going to do that all the way down for us. Now, if we wanted the abbreviated month, we can just take out 1M, so it's 3Ms. And you have January, and you can go all the way down that way with it. I'm just going to keep it the long way for now, but you can do an abbreviated version of that same formula. Sometimes, depending on what kind of chart and product, it might need more space or less space, so you can change that accordingly. Similar here, we're doing text again on that same date. This time we want the day, so it's truly 4 Ds. If we wanted the abbreviated day, we would do 3. We can close it out. I've gone over in other videos of how you can do this another way, and we'll see if I can get it to work first time in this one. But here, what we didn't cover in class, oftentimes what I do when I'm happy with the results of these formulas, you can see everything has a formula. You can see it up here in the formula bar underneath it. So it's not showing the actual value. Friday is not actually Friday in our text bar or the formula bar up here. It's showing the actual formula behind it. When I'm done with it, what I typically do is copy. I'm going to paste these as values. So it's going to take the contents of the cells, copy those, and just paste those themselves. So if I click on this Friday again, it now in the formula bar shows the text part just Friday. So there's no formula behind it anymore. This is helpful when you start to copy and paste quite a bit from different sheets. Now let's see if I can do day of the week on the fly to where it works out in my favor. And with that, I'm going to add another column next to this. So I want one as hour of the day first. So again, hour is truly just hour. And you can select that. And our incident date actually has hour as well, so it has the timestamp to it. Again, since I inserted next to it, I need to make these two general. And I can go down with that. Now to see if Excel can pick up the pattern of what I'm doing, and depending on what class you've had with me before, you've probably toyed around with this a little bit. And it can do it with the month field as well. I'm going to try it with the day. So I'm going to click on column A. I'm going to turn this into a long date. By doing so, you'll see here it gives you the actual day of the week, month in text, the day number, and the numeric year. So I'm going to do day of week here. And as I start typing, Excel's going to try to pick up a pattern in what I am typing based on what field I'm pulling it from. I say that and it's not picking it up right now. But we can see if I highlight these and come up to fill and try to do a flash fill, they still don't see a pattern of what I'm working with. So of course, it's not working as hoped. Should I not have highlighted it? That was my issue. So I'm going to hit Control Z there. So what I did was started to type in a few, and you can see I'm extracting just this. I'm just retyping it over and over. Now you could do that over and over again to go through your whole, it's probably around 91, 92,000 rows, 91.8. Now since I've done this and I've shown Excel what I'm doing, and I'm now clicking on that next cell, the empty one here, and I'm coming up to the fill tab at the top, and I want it to flash fill. Oftentimes if you start typing, and if you're doing this at home on your computer, it might generate that for you automatically. That's what I was expecting Excel to do. But now since it did not, I'm going to tell Excel to do that for me. Now when I hover over flash fill, you can see it actually gives me a keyboard shortcut to use flash fill. So here it's Control E. So if I'm still in cell B11 here, I'm going to hit Control E and give it a second to load. Again, we're going through 90,000 rows. And it actually pulled that for me automatically. So it picked up that flash fill option that I wanted to do, and we're good to go there. Now we have, from that incident date, we have day of the week a couple different ways. We have the hour of the day, we have the year, and the month a couple different ways. With this, we introduce lovely pivot tables that can save you a lot of time and effort when it comes to aggregating data. So with that, I'm going to select the whole sheet, just clicking on that triangle between A and 1, coming up to Insert, going into Pivot Table. Since I have a sheet highlighted, I'm good to go there. I want to put it in a new worksheet, and it's going to load that over here as Sheet 1. I'm going to do Pivot, and I'm going to do Year just for this one, and we're going to go through what we kind of covered in class. So with that, since I've renamed it, obviously I'm interested in the year. So I'm going to click on my year here and drop it down as a row. And then everything in here needs a count. So I'm interested in how many crimes occurred each year. Within our original data set, if we're looking at it, everyone has a unique incident number. So each incident has, you can see the year in front of it, but then a numerical value after it that sets it apart from every other one in here. So with that, I want a count of how many incident numbers there were per year. So I'm telling Excel I want it by year, which we have that, we just made that. But now I want you to count the number of incidents per year. Obviously, we're partially through 2023, so that number's lower. We're going to show you how to take that out here in a second. But with that, we now have a count of crimes by year. When I say if you want to take it out, you can see up here it generates the row label and you have a drop-down menu. Right now it has all the fields in it. If we want to leave out, say, our 2023 in blank since we have none, we can hit OK and we're left with 2017 through 2022. And we see in those 6 years, we just have over 90,000 or just under 91,000 incidents. With that, you could make an easy chart. And let's say you wanted to make a chart by year. We are clicked in our pivot table. If you ever click out of it and you lose your pivot table pane over here, just re-click on your pivot table and it brings it back for you. But I'm going to go up top to Pivot Table Analyze. And don't mind if you don't have all of these ribbons or tabs up here. I just have some extensions or add-ins in for mine. Pivot Table Analyze, and we want to add in a pivot chart. Click that, and you might wonder, you can probably do a nice cluster or a column chart, and that's what we're going to do. I like the recommended one, so I'm going to click OK. Give it a second to load. Hopefully it's not freezing, and there we go. Now, when I ask for like a finished chart, obviously when I ask for a finished chart, I want you to change the title up here to where this would be total number of crime incidents by year. If you want to change the coloring, you can. If you want to change, when I say the coloring, since I'm clicked on the chart, you see different options up here. Click on the design one. If you're familiar with me, usually go a dark theme to most of it. You can change the colors within it, but you also, when you click on any column itself and then right click, you can add a trend line, but really for our purposes, I'm interested in the data label. I want to know the count of how many there are in there. So that's important to me. Now the cool part is, since this is a table up here that we have the original data from and we made a chart based on that, if I come back into my pivot table part and I want to apply a filter. So now say I'm interested in offense description. When I say that, description is the actual text based of the code. And let's say I'm interested in a couple different crime types. I'm going to select multiple, but I don't want all. Let's say I'm interested in ag assault and homicide over this time period itself. So that's murder here. So I have 2 violent crimes. And now everything updates, my table here updates and my chart updates based on that filter I just applied. So now you would have to update your title here from not just crime incidents, but violent crime incidents, and go from there. That gives you the ability to manipulate your data here in the pivot table that will automatically update in a chart for you. Pretty handy, and all I'm doing to get back to that pivot table is I'm exiting out of the format for the chart itself. but it gives you the ability to put quite a bit of information in there. And make quick charts on the fly that you can use for whatever you may need. And as you can see, 2020 and 2021 were pretty violent years for Little Rock. In 2022, even though it did go down, homicide did go up, which is why I typically combine ag assault and homicide together, because one obviously is more lethal than the other and deadly, but an ag assault and homicide could be interchangeable depending on what the overall purpose was. And there's a whole literature on the nature of violence around some of that. With that though, let's dive into the second step. I have other videos on this, but we're going to make a temporal heat map based on day of the week, hour of the day. With that, going to hop back to our original data set. Want to highlight it all again. Insert, I'm going to make a second pivot table sheet. So all of this is the same. It's going to make a new worksheet again. I'm going to call this one just a temporal heat map. So we're good to go there. This time though, as a row, I want the hour of the day. And across the top, I want the day of the week. So we have day as text or day of the week. Either one works. You can see here now we have each one. When you're looking at the day of the week, and we did not cover this in class, and this is why I put it in the video, you might be wondering, well, technically I want Sunday after Saturday versus at the start. So if I were to right click on Sunday, I can go down to move, and I say move to the end. If you wanted just to move it after Monday, you can do that, but if I want to move it to the end to signify Monday's actually the start of the week for us. Similar, we see that we have some issues with the blank showing up, so if I hop into column labels, unclick the blank, and then row labels, I'm also going to take the blanks off of here as well. And now we're left with just our values. Again, we need a count of number of crimes based on the hour of the day and the day of the week. So I'm going to use that incident number, put it under values. You can see here that it has count. Say you were to bring this in and it does not have count. If I were to click on it, it gives me value field settings. This is where it's pulling some summary statistics for you. It might do some depending on what we do in the future, but for our purposes, if it was some, come down, click count, and click OK, and we're good to go there. So now we know the number of crimes based on the hour of the day, day of the week. You might look at this and like, well, shit, this is a ton of numbers. How am I supposed to detect patterns from this other than eyeballing it? It's going to take a lot of time. This is where, again, Excel has some built-in functionality to help you with that. So I'm going to click on my top 765, so this would be Monday at midnight, all the way down to Sunday at 11 p.m., which is 2300. Going to come up to home, and then we have some conditional formatting. This is when I say conditional, it's going to take the data you have highlighted, and it's going to put different conditions on it. We'll use these throughout the semester in different capacities, but for now, we just want a color scale. And if you go to the second one where it's red, yellow, green, it's going to highlight the high values in red and the low values in green. So pretty cool, pretty handy when we have this in front of us. And you see general patterns, much in line with routine activities theory and kind of just general routines of people. Not shocking, from 1 a.m. to about 6 a.m. You see that lull. And then during the week, from especially lunchtime to 5, 6 when people get out of work, you see that peak period, different patterns on the weekend. But keep in mind, this is all crime incidents. So this is violent to property and multiple years of data. So when I say that, we could come in now, and let's say I'm interested in a year filter as well an offense to see what this looks like. So to start off, let's just keep all the years, but let's look at specific offenses. So let's say I'm interested in ag assault. So remember, this is all crime data, so it's aggregated together. And now I'm only interested in ag assault. And you see a very different temporal pattern towards later hours into the night and early morning that we see peak periods for ag assault. This means something very different from a strategic or prevention standpoint because you have different hot periods in terms of time of day and days of week. And keep in mind, you might wonder, well, shit, Monday at midnight. Keep in mind, it's going from Sunday over, so it's not shocking to see that here. Now switching from a violent crime, let's change it up and look at, say, burglary B&E. We see a different temporal pattern to it. Again, think when burglary is more likely to occur, breaking and entering, people are probably at work. So when people or houses are less guarded, businesses, depending on what you're looking at there, but it's less guarded, so you have different peak periods for that specific crime type. When you aggregate, you lose some of those general findings. And the big one that's driving behind the scenes for a lot of this is probably theft in general. So let's see if we have, oh, they put it in shoplifting too, or all their larceny itself. Not surprising, larceny and theft, very dependent on some of our business hours as well. So not as many businesses are open at certain times of day. Shoplifting, very similar. Probably when they're closing, you can see that period right after work. But when they open up, it's about when they close, and fewer businesses are open at all hours. Keep in mind, Little Rock does have some that are 24/7. They have some bars that have 5 a.m. even liquor licenses, so speaks to some of that in general. This is a nice way to look at the temporal dimension of data, especially if you're looking at incident crime data based on time of day with our hour and day of week. Say you want to restrict this, again, to a specific year. We can add multiple filters to this, so let's just look at 2022. Changes that so when you see the blanks, that means that nothing was recorded for shoplifting in 2022 on Monday at 4 a.m. If we wanted to change this to, let's say, motor vehicle theft, different temporal pattern, that conditional formatting also updates for you. So once you set it and then mess with the filters, it's pretty cool and handy to work with from there. So a nice, easy way to work with this data. And the last part that we did cover in class was when we have our data set, and this is from the 3D mapping, so this is the PC, not you Mac people. Again, when we're going into 3D mapping, keep in mind you cannot hit this triangle. It's highlighting the entire sheet, so it has a lot of empty values in it. It wants just the rows and columns, the cells within that have actual value data in it. So I'm going to select cell A1, hold down Control Shift, down arrow, right arrow. So now I have just the data fields within the sheet highlighted. Come up to Insert, hop over to 3D Map, and I'm going to open a 3D map. Again, this is my slower computer. It's also 90, almost 2,000 rows of data. So let it take a moment to load. Even though it says not responding, it will generate for me. I'm just used to this computer over the years. So it will kick up. It will just take a moment for what we're trying to work with here. I say that and it's taking longer than I even expected. But there we go, still working in the background. Oh, come on. Don't crash on me now. There we go. You can see it down here. It's updating for us along the way. So that's where I always look. Even when it says not responding, I usually give it 30 seconds to a minute to see if it bounces back. Also, if it starts to throw things up here of what it's doing. So keep in mind, this is where we had the issue at the start of the semester where it's still contacting, since it is Microsoft, it's going through Beam to map some of this data for us and bring it back. And there we are. So it's loading it for us. So give it another second and we're good to go. It's brought in all of the data. Now I'm going to actually exit out all this information here because there's been a few students that came in and it loaded the data, but it didn't grab the location automatically for you. But if you remember in our original data set, it does have our latitude and longitude in it along with the address. So Excel will automatically map this for us. We just need to sometimes tell it what we want it to grab. So to do that, I'm going to add field. And I'm just going to specify that I want you to use the latitude. And it automatically brings that in for us. And it gives you different options. We'll do this at different weeks in the semester of what you're trying to use with it. But we also want the longitude. Those are essentially your XY coordinates. So we need to use those in tandem to bring up our data. Put those in there and auto fit, since based on the name, it matches those automatically. So we're in good shape. Out of habit, I turn on my map labels and I turn it into a flat map. So as we zoom in, oops, a little too south. We can see some of that a bit easier, change my perspective. And the big part we covered in class, given the temporal dimension of what we're doing, was this time field here. So in our original data set, we had that incident date that had the date and time to it. So because of that, Excel does recognize that in our mapping layer as well as such. So when we add that in, you'll now see a play bar at the bottom that will allow us to play our data. Right now, it's a single point, which doesn't give us as much detail as the heat map up here. So I'm just going to change it to a heat map. And what this is going to do is going to go to the earliest part in time, start there, and move forward to our current day of our last one, which I'm surprised it's that date. So obviously there was a date entered wrong because we're not that far into 2023 yet. But we're going to hit play, and you can see over time it's going to play all of this, and it's a big hodgepodge of data, about 92,000 incidents in it. So everything looks hot for that. What you can do, say you wanted to get into your filters, and you want to add a filter based on, let's do an offense description, and let's only look at our murder itself over the past 6 years and just about a month. So now we have a filter that's only going to show the temporal nature and space of our homicides starting in 2017 to current. You can see where those pop up over time. So it is handy. You can do multiple filters similar to within the workbook itself, but another visual aid to see where homicides are occurring in Little Rock over a significant period of time. You can create this as a video, export it out, and put it into a presentation, share it. I've done this before and we'll cover this later, but it does give you the ability to visualize this, but also see where they are occurring at the same time. With that, this is the main parts that we hit in class. The homework's going to still be with Little Rock data, asking you to do a few different things, but similar to this. If there are any questions, feel free to reach out. Until next time.